Boy, do we have a lot to be coping from these days. Either we are suffering or witnessing the suffering of others. It's hitting us from all sides. The pandemic, wars, the economy, the constant drumbeat of what's going to happen next. There's so much uncertainty, and we all need ways to cope so that we can just put one foot in front of the other and keep going. So today we're going to explore coping skills with our guests, EJ and Ricky. I'm Jennifer Dillon, and this is the Small Powerful Things podcast from Bounce Back Generation. We are a nonprofit creating and sharing tools to build resilience to the stressful times we live in. Small Powerful Things are the little things we do that yield long-term results to help us realize our happiest lives and truest potentials. This series is about one of our tools to manage toxic stress, the 6 building blocks for resilience, and coping skills is building block number 3. I'll let EJ and Ricky share their coping skills as we explore what makes a coping skill a good one and what makes it not so good. There are lots of ways to cope, and as Ricky and EJ share with us, we have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to be aware of what we're feeling and try to find new ways to feel good. But as we say at Bounce Back Generation, we need to find something that makes us feel good today, but not like hell tomorrow. Feel good now, feel good later. Hi, Ricky. Hi, EJ. Thank you for being here and participating in our Small Powerful Things podcast. And I just want to start out by asking you guys to share a little bit about yourselves. So, EJ, do you want to start? Just tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Good morning, Jennifer. Thanks for having me. Hey, Ricky. Good morning.
Good morning.
Few things about me. I'm a San Francisco native. I am currently a student studying alcohol and recovery at City College of San Francisco. Aspiring to be a substance abuse counselor in the near future. I am a mother of 2, and I love music. I appreciate the caffeine and coffee. It helps me get through the day.
Ricky, how about you? I was just going to say, EJ, I think you're going to be able to tell us a lot about coping skills because there's such a connection between using substances and, to feel better, right? Ricky, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Ricky Hall, 26, and I'm from Oakland, California. And thank you for having me here today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. All right. So I wanted to start this conversation with, why is it that we even need coping skills? So can you share a little bit about what are some of the things in your life that you feel like you need to cope from? I always feel like there's kind of 2 sets of things that we carry around. We carry around our past and the things that have affected us in the past, which can be a drag if we haven't fully resolved them. And then there's just the constant barrage and input of stuff that is coming in every day, whether it's a pandemic, it's a war in, Ukraine, it's, the economic situation. So what are some of the things that just are causing you to feel like I am stressed out and I need to cope?
Life, daily activities. I think you pretty much touched on everything. What happens around you, whether you are directly connected or indirectly connected, whether it is something that you can recognize that affects you consciously or unconsciously, your own life, being a part of what's going on right now with, for example, Russia and Ukraine, and not being able to help. That's a stressor. That's something that, may be a trigger for you to have to rely on coping skills or just need to better process.
Yeah, that feeling of watching stuff happen to other people and not being able to do anything for me is highly stressful. Thank you, EJ. That was a very comprehensive list of things, and it's all true. We're dealing with so much. Ricky, how about you?
I think the stress or anxiety of things on a natural basis or on an everyday basis that we deal with, and being able to get through these things and learn how to cope with them. Getting over everyday struggles. Like if you have bills to pay, you have a way to maintain and plan out your day. without stressing about it.
Yeah, so you're kind of feeling a lot of that daily stuff that's coming at you, like, oh my God, I got to pay the rent, or how am I going to get from here to there, or I'm going to be late, or all those kinds of, you know, minor stressors, but they build up and they become this, you know, a lot to deal with just on a day-to-day basis, just waking up in the morning and think about all the things that you have to get through. Um, did you, and I'll start with you, Ricky, did you learn how to manage stress when you were a child? Was there like somebody you sat down and said, okay, when you feel like this is what you should do?
Yes, I had plenty of people that would talk to me about it, but did I learn how to manage stress as a kid? No. So,
How about you, EJ?
As a child, I came from a very outspoken family. Um, I grew up with, I think there were about 13 or 14 of us between the siblings and the cousins. I'm two of six children. So my family was very big on using your words. And if you can't use your words, you need to find an outlet. So for me as a child, I was able to use my words. If I couldn't use my words with the person that I was, or with the person I was with, my family's very open. So we could go and bounce our feelings off of somebody else. If I couldn't talk to my mom, I could talk to my aunties. If I couldn't talk to my aunties, I could talk to my grandparents. So I learned as a child very early to use your words. If it was a situation that did not warrant conversation, I used to color as a child, and I still do as an adult. I would absolutely zone out with a coloring book, and I would just color. I would literally go through my coloring book and color all the grass in the book green. Everything that I wanted to be green in the book, I would start with that green crayon and color everything green, and then go on to blue or go on to whatever I wanted red. So we were provided outlets to process. And if that didn't work, my mom was one of those people. She was going to figure it out. What's going on? Where do I need to be? Where should you be? How can we do this? If it's something that you need that's not here, let's go get it. So I learned very early to use my words. And if my words were not something to help me get over it, find something else to channel that energy into.
I love that idea of, as a kid, you're trying to figure things out. And so you go to your coloring book and you kind of, and this is how I'm interpreting it. You're kind of ordering things by color. You're like, okay, like the things aren't right. And I'm going to make this right in my little world of my coloring book. That's really great. Ricky, did you find that there were things that you did to cope that maybe you weren't taught, but you just kind of naturally gravitated to, like what EJ said about the coloring book?
Yeah, I loved the basketball growing up as a kid. So I played a lot of basketball.
Do you remember how that helped you? Do you have like a memory of like, okay, I was really stressed about something and I played basketball. And then what is that feeling that you get afterwards or while you're doing it, or even the anticipation of doing it?
It's just a calming feeling. Or whenever I'm upset, overwhelmed, or stressed out, we will play basketball and it feels better.
That's really good. And there's a lot of research that tells us that one of the things about stress and particularly things that are really traumatizing is that it becomes worse if you're immobilized. If you can't actually do something physical, that there's something about being able to be physical, particularly if you're in a fight or flight, that and releasing that really helps your brain to kind of process that. There's more to it than that, but it's really interesting how we need that physical release.
Endorphins.
As an adult, what was that?
Releasing those endorphins.
Releasing the endorphins. That's right. And I just finished a book by a researcher named Anna Lemke, and she wrote this book about dopamine called Dopamine Nation. I don't know if you've heard about it, EJ, but I think you might be interested in it with the work that you're doing. She says that when something happens and we're feeling bad, we really want those kind of feel-good chemicals, the dopamine and the endorphins. And what happens, though, if we reach for stuff that's really really makes us feel good, like really, really good. And that's kind of the realm of like sex or drugs or, rock and roll lifestyle or whatever, where we then what happens is the brain goes into such a high state of feel good that it doesn't like that. It wants to feel more in balance. So what it will compensate with is you feel really good, and then when you come down, you feel really bad. And your brain does that because it's trying to bring you back into balance. And so what it really craves, yes, it wants to feel good, but more than feeling good, it wants to get into balance. So the trick with coping skills seems to be, can we find ways to cope that make us feel good but bring us back into balance? So the way that we put it at Bounce Back Generation is, are you doing something to cope that makes you feel good today and makes you feel better tomorrow? So it's kind of like a slow burn instead of like a hot, like, I'm going to feel really good right now. So thinking about that, what are some of your go-to tools that, or coping tools that you've tried that have made you feel really great, but have made you feel really terrible later, that can kind of show that how that coping skill can bring you that high, but also bring you that terrible low?
I'll go first. Good now, bad later. So in the moment, I'm working currently with the awesome group of young ladies right now, and they're in their recovery. And one of the key components to structuring their recovery and sticking with it is learning how to cope. And something that we tell them all the time, well, me all the time, because I was raised to use your words. I tell them all the time, use your words. And in that moment, if you're feeling something, you should be able to get it off of your chest and not feel bad about it, because you should be allowed to process, right? So if I'm sharing that with them, it's obviously something that I do. So in a moment, if I'm feeling something, I'm going to get it off my chest and I'm going to say it. I don't care how it comes out. If I'm yelling, if I'm using all my colorful adjectives, I have something to say and I'm going to say it. In a moment, it's like when your dopamine kicks in, right? I feel great. I get a gold star because I got it off my chest. But in the aftermath is, I possibly could have made somebody else feel bad the way I said it, or, how it came off. They misinterpreted it. So I left them hanging and I feel great and they don't feel great, right? So now I feel bad. That's something that happens for me because, now I hurt somebody to make me feel good, for me to process me.
That's my thing too. I was raised like you were, that, you use your words and you yell, you scream, you hang up on people, you tell them exactly what you're feeling about them right then with all the adjectives. And then almost like 2 seconds later, there's just regret, or maybe 10 minutes later, maybe it's the next day, but at some point there's just like a huge regret for that. Ricky, how about you? Something that a coping tool that you have used that makes you feel great today, but not so great later on?
It's hard to say. I'm going to say that. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's hard to say, because I think what is difficult about coping tools sometimes is that we don't know that what we're doing is just trying to make us feel better.
Or just process.
Right. Part of coping is just like, how do I process? So maybe it's like something bad happens and you're not thinking like, okay, I'm going to my coping tool. You're just doing what you always do to try to, but we're so unaware sometimes of even like, oh, I feel really bad and I need to do something to feel better, that, you may be just doing stuff, just not even making that connection that I'm doing this because I feel bad about what happened. You feel like that might be something that's going on?
Yeah.
Makes sense. What advice would you offer from your own personal experience to help people explore what coping tools might work for them? So let's say, I'll start with you, Ricky, let's say you're working. How old are you, Ricky, by the way?
I'm 26.
So let's say that you're working with like a teenager. Let's say you're like playing basketball with a teenager who is just losing it on the court all the time and can't concentrate because they're just like, oh, I can't believe I missed that or whatever. What kind of advice would you give to that teenager?
To calm down and take your time. Because I know what it's like to rush into things, and when things don't go your way or you fail at something you're working really hard at, I know what it's like. So my best advice is to slow down and take your time.
How about you, EJ?
Talking to a teenager, that's my daily life. Oh my gosh. Listen to understand, because that can help you process better, and that could possibly eliminate them doing something that they would regret later. Advice that I would give is also figure out what it is about themselves that they appreciate or they like to do for them that takes them out of the moment right now. Teenagers live in the moment like we all did. If it's a stressful situation, figure out what it is they appreciate, they like, their go-to that takes them out of the moment and brings them back with a little bit of clarity where they can better understand what's going on, what's happening, or what has happened. Be easy and relax. There are a bunch of things to help people cope, but I think if you understand why you are where you are, the skills that they pick up will be better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Have a good coping skill. You need to kind of like what we're just talking about. You need to understand that you need something, and you need to know yourself enough to say, this is what's making me feel bad, and this is what's going to make me feel better. And maybe Ricky, you could talk about this. Do you have a sense of like, are you just like walking around during the day saying to yourself, I don't feel good? Or is it just like, you're not even aware of it? And on the other side is, do you ever kind of become aware of, oh, I do feel good. This is what it feels like to feel good and right. Because I think for a lot of young people, especially, is and I remember being young too, and your brain actually doesn't stop developing until you're about 24, 25 years old, just not actually being aware of my own state of mind. Yep. So Ricky, can you think about that and say, do you ever are you conscious of how you're feeling on a, kind of a moment by moment basis?
Most of the time, yes. And I know exactly what to do when it happens. But when all right, let's say I'm busy and I don't know that I'm going through that mentally, I would have to step back and realize and pay attention to how I'm feeling at that moment.
And do you do that a lot for yourself, or do you find that you're doing that more and more?
Yes, every day.
Yeah, that's a really important skill. How would you help another young person to think about, to kind of stop, and it's kind of like looking at yourself and like checking in with yourself? How is that something you feel like you could teach?
Yes, because I remember one of the questions I always get asked growing up as a kid is, what do you like to do? Or what do you want to do when you get older? I could not answer those things because I didn't focus on that. So one of the main important questions is, what would you like to do? What are some things that you enjoy? That could be a coping mechanism.
And what if they say, well, I like to, drink a thing of Hennessy, and then I like to go drive around. And I mean, those things can feel good. So how would you get someone, especially a young person, to a teenager, for example, to think about other stuff?
If that's what he enjoys, then encourage him to try something new. If you want to have a drink throughout the day, just make sure you're doing something else fun. Make sure that's better than drinking and staying at home every day.
Yep. EJ, what about you? I think you've talked some more, but I think you have such good experience and insight, particularly working with kids, but also just your own coping. What are some of those ways that we can kind of stop and check in with ourselves?
Stopping and checking in with myself. That is a good question, Jennifer, because I don't do that. I will, for myself personally, I am good with blocking out the world. And this is something that I've had to learn as an adult, me personally, because I used to, and I still do, I give 110% of myself, not because I want it back from someone else, but that's just myself. And part of me in hopes feels like if I give 100% to everybody else, they'll do it for me. Um, and when I'm disappointed about anything, I have learned to appreciate people for who they are, right? I can't put a set of expectations on other people um, that they don't have, right? That's my expectation of them. That's how I see them. So I had to teach myself not to see others how I see myself, not to expect from others what I would do, what I would want them to do. Because that would set me up for tremendous disappointment. And I would be running around fussing and yelling and shaking my fist. And now I'm upset at everybody. And I would be mad at the people who didn't do anything to me, right? I would be so upset at the people who had nothing to do with it. But because they were there, you get it too, right? So I had to learn to take me off the table. And that looked like, going to sleep for the first time in my life since COVID. I appreciate COVID. Can I say that? Because I have never been able to take a nap. So I have been able to like take a nap and recharge and come out of it with a little more clarity. The rage inside, would decrease because now I'm coming back in with clarity. Just kind of nodding off. Probably I was able to talk to myself and talk myself down. I like sitting in my car and just kind of reflecting back on the day, if not the week and the month, but reflecting back on what happened throughout the day. And I leave it outside. You know what I mean? I don't bring outside in the home with me anymore because that was something that I would do also. So I learned as an adult to, leave every piece of my life where it happens. Work stays at work, school stays at school, home stays at home, kids stay with me, things like that. So that I'm not so chaotic mentally. I'm not running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And the skills that I have to keep me insane and intact, I can actually use them because I can hear myself think. It's not the student, the worker, the mom, the cousin, the sister, the friend, all bottled up in one little head because that was my life before. So I learned to leave those pieces where they are and go back to them when they need me. And I appreciate taking a good nap these days because I can.
You have three really excellent billboard points that I want to highlight. One is the realization that you can't control other people. Mm-hmm. What a huge thing that is to just, releasing a lot of the stresses that, we experience. Two is separating yourself from the different, compartmentalizing in a way the things that are in your life. So you're not bleeding everything in. So work is not affecting your home life and home life's not affecting your social life and your social life's not, and finding ways to do that in a balanced way. Not that you're like closing the door on everything, but that you're realizing I can't sit and worry about work when I'm trying to have a good time with my kids. Right. And then this point that you made about COVID, I think is really interesting. We did a focus group and a survey with a bunch of youth and asked them about, how they went through COVID and what did it mean for them and how did things work out. And of course, there was a lot about feeling isolated. There was a lot of negative feelings about themselves because they, especially when kids are young, they need that socialization. But the one good thing that seemed to come out of it was there was a space and time that we normally didn't have to do things like sleep a lot or spend time, just thinking about things and exploring, your interests on YouTube and stuff like that. So there is a positive side to COVID, despite all the negativity. So Ricky, do you have any thoughts on what EJ said about some of those big things, like being able to kind of separate yourself from other parts of your life, or compartmentalize, or about COVID, or about that concept of not being able to control people and kind of letting them be who they are and accept them as they come?
Yes, and I feel like that's the perfect way to put it, but I can relate to that. I'm very, very good at blocking out the world, and I don't know how I got there. Something I developed since I've been growing up. So I've learned how to do that. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but it doesn't feel bad to do that. So
what does that mean for you to block out the world? Like, what does that feel like? Or what are the things that you do to do that, to accomplish that?
Find a space that I'm safe in. If I had a really busy day and I don't want to deal with anybody that day, or if I was stressed out that day, at the end of the day, when I'm done going through everything I had to go through, I want to be able to relax or sit down somewhere and do something I enjoy. So I'm going to block out the world, music, a movie, or a book, or whatever it is I want to do.
I was just thinking of that Kendrick Lamar song. But the "Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe" song. I love that song.
That's right, Jennifer. Don't kill my vibe. All the colorful adjectives. That's right.
I love that song.
That's right.
Yep. So anything more about Ricky, about COVID and how COVID might have affected you, kind of in thinking about your coping, and did it help you? Did it make it so that it was more stressful? How did COVID affect you?
I mean, it affected me as far as looking for a job, and I had to move back to California. It got a little difficult, but not overwhelming. It's something I can handle. And I feel like everybody in the world is going through this for a reason, is what I feel.
What do you think the reason is that we all went through this, or going through it?
You want me to tell the truth? I mean, how I feel about it?
Absolutely. Yes.
I feel like it's a man-made thing, and our government just wanted to do something. I don't know. I don't feel like it has anything to do with us entirely.
Yeah, I mean, that a lot of people feel like that there's something manufactured about it, or just it doesn't compute with what we think of our worldview of what we think the world is like, and suddenly we got thrown this kind of curveball, or appeared it to be that way. So that's your perception is your perception, and you have the right to have that, and to kind of work through that, to think about how you're going to approach the next thing that happens. So how prepared do you both feel for this kind of, it feels like the world doesn't get it. There's no kind of letting up. It's not like, oh, okay, we're having a bad time with the pandemic, and, there's always something else. So how do you feel like you're, up to this moment, you have prepared yourself for, what's to come next? Do you feel like you're in a better state to do that? Do you feel like you need to figure out more things? And I'll go to you, EJ.
I don't know what I'm getting prepared for, but I think I am. I think, my grandfather always told me that you need to have a couple of dollars in your pocket. Make sure that you have a couple of dollars on a credit card, just in case, cash is not king. In case of an emergency, you should have a backup plan, whatever that looks like for whatever the situation is. If you got a flat tire and you don't have a spare, you got to have a couple of dollars in your pocket to get on a bus or get a cab. Am I prepared for what's next to come with COVID being reduced down from a pandemic to a epidemic? No. Am I prepared to get back out here into the workforce to find another job? No, because I haven't had to look for work in 9 years. So no, I'm not prepared for that. Um, am I prepared to get out here and be a substance abuse counselor? I was prepared until I had to sit down with a group of young women and they asked me, am I in my recovery? And they kind of pulled my card because no, I didn't use drugs. I don't know anything about what it looks like to use drugs personally. But am I taking the steps to better understand? Yes, that's why I'm here. So I feel like in order to get prepared, you got to step out of it, step out of whatever the situation is, step out of it, get a better look for a better understanding. Society is all over the place right now. Like I said before, you can't fix everybody. You cannot expect you to come out of everybody. So, I hate to say turn down your expectations of others because I want everybody around me to be great, but turn down your expectations to reduce the disappointment and do what you can do. That will help. That helps me stay prepared, stay focused, and willing and able to move on to whatever my next steps are. You can always get prepared if you have to. For me, I don't have a problem stepping out of a situation and say I'm not ready for this, and I'll give myself the time to get ready, to be prepared.
Preparation is a coping skill. Feeling that you have thought about what's going to be coming up is a great way to cope. And so, you're prepared for an emergency, you're prepared for an earthquake, you're prepared for, a cyber attack or the lights to go out. All of that can make you feel more secure to just be like, I've thought this ahead of time and I have a plan in place. What about you, Ricky? Do you feel like you're ready for kind of what's next?
At the moment, no. I am very unprepared for whatever is coming next. But I am making preparations and trying to work hard to put myself in a place of success.
Good. Well, I'm going to close this out with asking, and thank you so much. Those are really great responses. I think there's just so much there that I think is going to help a lot of people to think differently about how we think of coping skills. Because most of the time when I ask people, what are your coping skills? They'll say, well, I go get my nails done and, and I go out with my friends and have, a bunch of drinks or something. And coping skills, I mean, not that those aren't, but that there are so many ways to cope. And I think some of the ways that we've talked about are less about going out and buying something and more about a state of mind. And
don't get me wrong. I will go buy coffee and I will have a drink.
Me too.
And I will listen to Kendrick Lamar extra loud. Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
Yep, me too. So we always close this out with this podcast with asking people who made a difference for you when you were growing up. Can you think of somebody that just was there for you in a way that still reverberates today? You still think of them and what they did or that thing that happened. Ricky, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I feel like I had a few people in my life growing up that were there for me. And reason being is because I had to go through the system growing up. So I wasn't always with my family. And I feel like that affected me in certain ways. But, I had my brother, my sisters, my mom, and the rest of my family and friends.
Can you think of one person that that had an impact, that maybe said something to you or taught you something or was just there for you at a particular time when you needed them?
Yes. As a kid, it always seemed like I was upset or angry or overly emotional. So my mom would say things to calm me down or relax me. And I feel like my brother would always make me laugh. No matter what it was, my brother always had something funny to say. And I felt like that was very, very good for me.
Absolutely. Laughter is incredible for our brains and our bodies and just our spirit, and to feel like the world is going to be okay if you can laugh. I think that's huge. How about you, EJ?
A person who made a difference growing up for me. I had grandmothers. I had three grandmothers growing up, and they all brought something different to the table. And I kind of embody them as one person because I can't pinpoint what one thing I got from each of them that made a difference. I think it was kind of everything that I got from all three of them that made a difference, that made me who I am, which is the same thing that I have like kind of passed down to all the rest of the young ladies in my family. They were very poised, very classy, very articulate. They were independent. They were very strong. They were focused. They were driven. They were educated beyond what was given to them at the time. They were advocates, and unconsciously, I kind of followed in those footsteps. Very supportive, and I had the realest grandmothers ever. Like if I called my grandmother and told her, "Oh my gosh, these girls are picking on me," she would get in her car and come where I was. If I called another one and I told her, this hair is not matching with this dress, she would come and fix it and put it all together. And I had another one who was very mild-mannered, even-tempered, until she wasn't. And it took a lot to get her out of character. And whenever she did, people kind of gave her space. So I can't say it was one person, but I can say that from the three of them, they kind of created the one person that I am today. So my grandmothers did that for me.
That's wonderful. I love that. It's kind of like they all three became one, super grandma.
That's what they were.
Yeah.
Until I got in trouble.
Yeah. Then you don't want to be on the other side of that.
No.
I'm sure.
The super grandma was too much. No. Mm-mm.
Well, Ricky and EJ, thank you so, so much.
I think you should close us out. Once you do the edits, you got to play Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, play Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, I would love to. Oh my God. I don't know though, because you have to, I have to get the copyright rights.
Can you play the instrumental?
I think you just have to. Don't you just have to put like a typo over the video? Like you don't own the rights to the music. I think you have to put that.
We need our 7 seconds.
I know. All we need is a 7 seconds of the bitch don't kill my vibe. And
we need our 7 seconds. Using my colorful adjectives is actually the best coping skill that I have. I will curse and yell and scream, and then I feel better. I don't care how you feel. I feel great. You don't cuss?
I do too. There's research that says that people who cuss a lot, they have lower stress levels.
Yes.
And I cuss all day long, and my teenage son cusses too, and I can't say anything because he learned it from me.
My daughter is a cusser. My son is still kind of like shy about it, but I know he's got a terrible mouth, and they inherited it honestly. And I, as long as they're not cussing at me, I can't say too much because, hey, get that shit off your chest and feel better about it. Now, we're going to talk about this later, but, say your shit. That's what we say at my house. Say your shit and go on about your business.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that. And I told my son, you learn this from me. The only thing I ask is that you learn where's the part of the world where I can talk like that and the part of the world where I can't.
Right. Know how to code switch.
As long as you know that difference.
Yep.
Yeah. So you got to code switch.
Know how to code switch. Don't cuss the people out who could possibly employ you or make you a millionaire.
Right. I'd like to meet some of those people who are going to make me a millionaire.
That part.
Nice. Thank you for listening to the Small Powerful Things podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, we provided a link in the description to the Kendrick Lamar song all three of us felt like captured the power of taking time for yourself to find out what works for you, especially if you need to block out the world for even just a moment and just vibe by yourself. Listen to the entire Small Powerful Things podcast series to learn about the other building blocks for resilience: protection, relationships, a can-do attitude, belonging, and storytelling. I'm Jennifer Dillon from Bounce Back Generation. Thanks for listening.